Morning, everybody. My name's Nick Laycock. I'm going to be the chair in track 2 for today. I'm taking a 1-minute flyer because Julie has warned me she has a great deal of material to get through and she wants the maximum possible time to do it, and I'm not going to get in her way at all. Hope you enjoy the session. It's going to be incredibly interactive. I've been told that my job is going to be to walk around with a microphone and help Julie while I'm doing it, so please enjoy what Julie's got to say to us. Julie's a hugely experienced trainer. She's been described as the trainer's trainer. She's a regular speaking on this platform and in other places around the world, Europe, States, and all the rest of it. So Julie's incredibly experienced. We've had a fantastic keynote this morning, and Julie's going to tell me that what she's going to do now is challenge why the uptake of games and gamification is so slow at the moment, given what we've heard this morning. Julie, it's all yours.
Thank you, Nick. That was very precise. Hello. If you've seen me speak before, thank you so much for coming back. If you haven't, I hope that I don't disappoint. For those of you that usually speak with me, you're probably wondering, where are the props? Where's the things I've got to hold, do, make? Anybody remember doing origami with me? Okay, thank you for those of you that did. No props today. What I want is your brain. And after what we just did in the open keynote, I'm going to use that a lot. And to talk about why I've come along to talk about gamification, I went to Learning Live in September last year. Did anybody else go there? Do you just want to indicate if any of you went there? Okay, a couple of you went. Well, at this event, do you all know Spencer Kelly, who does the BBC Click programme? Okay, he was the keynote. And he was really enthusiastic and talking to us about all the changes in technology. And then he said, and isn't gamification great? How many of you are into gamification? And there's what Don Taylor called this morning a golden silence, when just 4 people, and I was one of them, put our hands in the air. Spencer Kelly was visibly shocked that this huge L&D audience were not engaging with gamification. I was really shocked as well. And after that keynote, I went out and I talked to people. I did a lot of networking, and I said, what's the problem with gamification? And what did people tell me? Oh, games, I mean, you can't take them seriously. You can't play games in the corporate world. I can't make games out of a legal situation. I can't make a game out of health and safety. Loads and loads of negative attitudes. I'll tell you about the attitude of one very, very well-known L&D professional later on. I was really shocked because I've been spending the last 18 months to 2 years working with gamification. I've also been looking at the value of gamification from a scientific point of view and linking that to the use of emotion and memory as how that works with learning. So some of that I'm going to share with you today. But as Nick said, as per usual, I have a lot to share, so we're going to go rapid. Okay, you ready? All right, well, we're going to start off. What am I going to do? First of all, I'm going to unpack the term gamification with you, because what my research has shown is that basically learning and development are a bit confused by what's meant by gamification. So we're going to go there, see it, do it, observe it. The next thing I'm going to do, I want to show you and share with you some different types of games, because I reckon probably quite a lot of you don't actually play computer games. I'm then going to get you to look at how I have been judging games, gamification, for learning and for play, using what I call my gamification lens, which is a way that I use to look at games, but I'm now using it as part of my construct when I'm designing games and sims. The other thing I'm going to do is then show you some of the projects that I've been working on, one in particular, and talk about the future of gamification in learning. Is that okay? Have I just done the tell them what you're going to tell them? We know that structure. Okay, so let's get started. So, first of all, do any of you have Life is the name of the game, and I want to play the game with you. Life is the name of the game. I think that's enough, Bruce. There's no Strictly coming, I promised. Those of you that know I'm a bit of a Strictly fan. Okay, how many of you have got store cards? Do you know what I mean by store cards? Yeah, have you got store cards? Awesome, hands in the air. How many of you have got more than one? Why have you got store cards? What do you use them to do? What happens when you go into a coffee shop and they stamp your card? Why are you doing that with them?
You get free coffee.
You know that you're going to get a free coffee. There's a little bit of a reward at the end of it, isn't it? And how many of you have, say, a petrol card or have a points card with perhaps hotels that you stay in or airplanes that you fly with, yeah? And do they have levels on those cards? They have gold, silver, bronze. And do you ever get a bit competitive with your colleagues over who's bronze and who's silver? I'm gold in some things. Wonderful. Yeah? Do you do that? Oh, so there are levels. There are points that you're collecting. And you get rewards, yeah? Oh, does that sound a bit like some of the technology that we use in gaming? Trust me, guys, if you've got store cards, the marketing teams of those stores and those organisations are playing the game with you. Welcome to my world. You are already playing the game. Your life is in the process of being gamified. How many of you are on LinkedIn? I would hope so. What made you join LinkedIn?
Connecting with others.
Good point. Connecting with others. Okay. Anybody else?
Because I couldn't connect with someone unless I joined.
There we go. That's a very good reason for a lot of people. Anybody do it because they maybe got made redundant, or maybe they wanted to change a job, or maybe they thought everybody else is doing it, so I need to do it. You joined in. And what did you do when you got into LinkedIn? You started to play, didn't you? Because they started to say, well, are you a beginner, an intermediate, an expert, and an all-star? And once you get on there, you don't really want to be a beginner. You want to get your profile done, don't you? How's your profile? And do you ever look at who looks at your profile? And do you ever look at how many connections you've got and compare yourself with other people? So are you being rated? Are you being compared? Are you messing with your reputation online with regards to your career? Yes, you are. LinkedIn are playing with you. But be careful if you're using LinkedIn like some people use Facebook. If you're using LinkedIn to just collect people, be very, very careful. Because in the future, this is from the 2020 Workplace book. If you haven't read this book, it's one of those books that I would recommend to anybody in learning and development to read if you really want to understand how organisations are going to change in the next 10 years. It was published in 2010. You will be hired and promoted based on your reputational capital, and that means the people that are in your LinkedIn page, you have selected to say, I know and trust and work with these people. I believe in these people. Is there anybody just now that I've said that you think, maybe I need to unlink from? Yeah? Think about it. Have you ever tried to unlink from anybody in LinkedIn? It's not an obvious thing you can do, is it? Welcome to the world. You're going to have to go and find out how to do it, for those of you that need to. But be very careful what you do on LinkedIn, because that is your reputational capital. But they've gamified it to make you come back. Do you get emails from them telling you somebody's looked at your profile? Do they tell you what other people are doing? Yeah? It's been gamified. Your career is in the process with LinkedIn of being gamified. But there's another quote in this book. The corporate curriculum will use video game simulations, alternate reality games as key delivery modes. They're predicting that. Do you know what? Ever since that book came out, so far, nearly every single thing that they've done, they've said in that book, there are 20 propositions, nearly every single one of them is starting to come true. You can see it emerging. If you haven't read that book, please do. I'm nothing to do with it. I'm just telling you it's a good book to read. How many of you are into health and fitness? Yeah? I supposedly am. Anybody? I know it doesn't look like it. How many of you do things like Map My Run? Yeah, it's been around for ages. It's the number one app. It's absolutely brilliant. For me, it's called Map My Walk. Okay, I don't run. Not in these shoes. This started off just as mapping your run, but it's gone social, and you can now compare your runs with other people. You can meet up with people that are in your locality and run their runs, and it's a great tool. But of course, that's quite old now. How many of you have got either a Fuel Band or a Fitbit? Okay, so your health is really, really starting to be gamified. You are judging yourself against yourself, but you can also judge yourself against other people doing the same thing. And it's happening all over the place. So not only has your life, in terms of your purchasing, your career, in terms of LinkedIn, and your health, all got the same connections because they have been gamified by people in marketing. So why are we ignoring it if you are now accepting it? If it's an acceptable part of the way you run your life and you have adopted it, you've told me, you've got store cards, then why are you ignoring it in learning? Although I appreciate that some of you might not be. What I want to do is show you that there is some direct linkage. This is a very simplified version, but this is how it's linked. If you take our work and our health, we collect things, so we collect points. yeah, on store cards, for example. We track them, yeah, even if it's just your coffee cup, you can see when your free next one's coming, can't you? You're waiting for that last stamp, then you go, oh, great, next one's for free. Anybody seen the Seinfeld episode where they wanted to collect the sandwiches, but they didn't like the sandwiches at the sandwich shop, so they would go and buy the sandwiches just because they wanted the free sandwich? Okay, find it on YouTube, it's very, very funny. What you find with the sort of gamification that we're doing with the marketeers is that they kind of encourage you to rate yourself against other people. But the reward comes at the end of it. It might be the free cup of coffee. It might be that you reach a different level within the rewards program. Something will come out of it. Do you get the idea? So if we think about video games then, in video games we typically have things called inventories where as we go around, particularly on quest games, we collect things that we might need to help us. Anybody played those sort of games? Okay, some of you have. And they have levels, you know, start, easy, medium, hard, it's not difficult, yeah? That's how those kind of levels work. But they kind of motivate you with those. And we have ratings, and ratings are sometimes reputational. They might be to comparison to others. They might be just rating you against an imaginary scoreboard, but they try to encourage you to rate yourself against them. And of course, with video games, you're really looking for the win. And I think what was said this morning in the keynote, that Americans are programmed to win, you know, that kind of gets you into that culture. But that's not always the case. So if I'm seeing a relationship between these two, then how do I see the relationship with learning? Well, what if I said that, first of all, in learning, we now have started to really get into the idea of curating information for learning? Anybody got curation policies going on in their company now? Anybody doing their own curation, perhaps on Symbaloo or Scoop It, something like that? We're starting to collect information. Actually, if you think about what Bo was saying this morning, we collect information in our heads as well as in our memories. And that's what people do when they learn information and obviously as they adopt skills as well. We curate. We progress. Do you do progress tracking in your company? Do they track your progress? They track how you're performing? That's all done in progress. And also, we look at progress in terms of qualifications, of courses, of experience, of career history. We track that. What about performance? Well, in performance, quite often you might be assessed. Do you ever have to do assessments? Do you ever have to do tick-the-box e-learning? Oh, yes, you've done that. And we know you've got the answers from the guy down the hall, but that doesn't matter. We tick the box, so you did a performance. We also look at your job role. We might look at your performance in terms of how much you're earning, your money, and also you might get better benefits as you move through the corporate ladder. And finally, we get to succeed. And of course, succeeding in our work life, in learning, tends to be actually meeting either a goal that we've set for ourselves or a goal that our organisation has set for ourselves. Can you see that there is a linkage there? No? Hello? Is there anybody there? Okay. Am I talking at you too much? The problem that I have is that even though I can tell you all of this, I reckon that some of you sit and go, yeah, very tenuous links. Maybe? Some of you? Yeah, maybe tenuous links. And this is the problem that I find. I find that there is some sort of mental block or blockage. I don't want to call it a mental block because somebody might be offended. There is some sort of blockage in learning and development about the value of gamification. And I don't care what you want to call it. I want you to just get over it. All right? Maybe it's that perception thing that Bo was talking about it. And actually, I think it might be, because when I've done my research, I found that people have very odd perceptions about what gamification is all about. So, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, I'm going to give you the information. Are you up for that? Because that's what we do, isn't it? So I'm going to give you the information. So first of all, let's ask the question, I'm learning from Bo, what is gamification? And you're going to go, oh, don't ask me, I can't answer that. So I'm going to give you the slide, okay? Gamification is the use of elements from gameplay in non-gaming contexts. Is that okay? Does that make sense? It provides rewards and engagement. So think about your store cards, yeah? All those cards as rewards. That's what they're doing with you. But there are very specific things about gamification that you need to be aware of. So first of all, gamification is playful. It's not a full game, yeah? It's not got any rules, really. It's just playful, and that's what they're doing with you quite often in the marketing arena. Gamification is about behaviour change. So thinking back to your store cards, have you ever gone to a particular store to get that coffee because you had the card? Have you ever flown with a particular airline because you're collecting the points? Have you ever stayed in a particular hotel because you are a member of that hotel group's reward system? Have you? Some of you are nodding. Thank you for being honest. Okay, so they have changed your behavior, your shopping and personal behavior based on the game. What do we try to do in learning? Are we trying to change people's behavior? Are you getting where I'm going with this? Okay, so the next thing is gamification is about motivation. It motivates people. We like to play. We heard that this morning, didn't we? And last of all, gamification, the reason people like it, it's immediate. It's very Generation C or millennials, or whatever you want to call them. I know we learned about Generation C yesterday, so for those of you that weren't in that session, we're talking about people that are engaged with technology. But how many people have got kids who like immediate feedback? Yeah, exactly. So that's what it's all about. Does that clarify what gamification is? The problem is, somebody normally at this point says to me, anybody want to tell me what I missed? Anybody want to talk about games-based learning? What's games-based learning then? Is that the same as gamification? Is it? Shall we clarify? Okay. Thank you. So games-based learning is a branch of serious games. Oh, great, now we've got to talk about serious games. I'll come on to that in a minute. But what's games-based learning? How many of you have ever played a game in a classroom? Yeah? Proper game with rules? Yeah? How long have we been doing that for? For a very long time, probably. Yeah? We play games all the time in the classroom, but it's now got a label. It's called games-based learning. And so games-based learning has a few characteristics. It's about playing a game with rules. All right? So a board game, but it might be a board game about corporate, policy. Game-based learning is about learning about a subject as you play the game. Oh, that's not what I meant to hit. Games-based learning is learning by doing something. It's not necessarily within context, but you do get feedback, usually by a facilitator. Anybody done that themselves? Yeah? Thank you for the gentleman nodding at the back. And finally, games-based learning is often classroom-based and blended with other forms of learning. And it's not necessarily digital. All right, and video. So don't assume that when people talk about games-based learning, they're talking about something that is digital. We do it with pens and paper, don't we? It's just learning in a gaming way. But of course, in this slide, I talk about serious games. So who knows what a serious game is? What's a serious game to you, sir? Right. Yeah. But people don't like the word game, do they? Corporate people don't like you saying game. Brilliant, you see. Thank you.
One of the steps I had to make was to not mention games, but to say gaming principles. So this was after getting past the games bit.
Yeah.
Then gaming principles, people sort of started buying that because of all the things you've said so far. Things have changed, and now they're saying gaming principles. Oh yes, I understand that.
Okay. So a serious game is designed for a primary purpose, like the gentleman said there, for his engineers. And the problem is that the serious adjective we've all got hung up on now, because it's like, does that mean what we're doing in learning isn't serious? If we're doing gaming and learning, but it doesn't have the serious tag, then are we doing something trivial? So this has really muddied the waters. Oh my goodness. And there are characteristics to serious games. A serious game is a game. Well, there you go. That was exciting. It has specific rules. That's the same as game-based learning. But there are lots of different categories of serious games. So you might recognize some of these. If you want to see them all, these are still evolving. What you need to do is go on Wikipedia and just Google serious games. The classifications are evolving. But there's lots of different words that are going on in there, and that gets really confusing and is just continuing to muddy the water. And so have you heard of a guy called Clark Aldrich? Okay, for those of you who have, he's written a lot of books on the subject, and Clark says just don't get hung up on the nomenclature. The way that he sees it is that we should call them all sims, because that gets rid of the word game. But actually, what is a sim? Well, sims are games or computer games or serious games or immersive learning situations or educational simulations, or what did you call them? Emulations. So there you go, we got another term now, all right? But most people are calling them sims, and what you will begin to see on LinkedIn is that people who are usually instructional designers that are moving into working in the field of creating simulations and gaming simulations are not calling themselves instructional designers anymore, because it is a different skill set. And you'll start to see the emergence of a job role called a sims designer. So watch out for that, that's coming. Now, is that enough theory? You're very quiet.
Just to say that business simulations have been existing for more than 30 years.
Exactly. It's not new, but it's the names that have got in the way. Well, if you've read my article from the November issue of Learning Technologies, you'll know that I recommended that you go and look at a TED Talk by a lady called Jane McGonigal. And I really do recommend that you go and run that. I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm not going to share anything that she has to say, because she says it far better than I ever could. But the core message of her TED Talk is one thing. Learning and development people need to play more games. Okay? So how many of you honestly, regularly engage with computer games? Well, that's good. Well done. That's more than normal when I ask that question. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run us through a couple of games that if you're not playing games, or even if you are aware of games being played in your house but you have not engaged, you might find useful. So the first one I'm going to have a look at is Minecraft. I know this has been mentioned a lot. I know that it was mentioned in a keynote yesterday, and those of you that were in Mark Prensky's session also mentioned it. Minecraft has been around for a long time. People think it's just for kids. It's not. It really is not just for kids. There's a huge adult population that is pretty much addicted, and I'm going to talk about addiction later, addicted to playing Minecraft. But who's got kids at home playing Minecraft? Yeah, that's all they do. And how do you think about Minecraft? Well, all I can say is the way that I would define Minecraft is it's like digital Lego. So have you ever used Lego in learning? Have you ever put a bowl of Lego on a table? People fiddle with it, build things. Yeah? And that, when we go back to what Bo was saying, that's about being playful, isn't it? There's no purpose to it, but you're just building. And in its simplest form, in Minecraft, you can just play at building things. But Minecraft is actually a lot more than that. So what I'm going to do is I've just done a little recording with my children of us playing Minecraft. I'm just going to talk to you about it. What Minecraft really is you just watch this. I'm not going to talk about it too much. It's a 3D survival game. This is Jamie just showing off his world that he's working on at the moment. It was the day after Christmas Day when we recorded this, so it's snowing. All right, that's why the weather's like that. And it was just towards the end of the day, so the sun's starting to go down, because it's all very real, even though it looks very blocky. In Minecraft, there are two modes you can play. You can play survival, where you have to monitor your health and nutrition, and depending on what level you play within the game, other things can happen to you. Or, which is much more common, especially with primary school children, they will play in the mode called creative, where you can just go and create whatever you like. This is what this is. But you can include your survival mode meters as well as an option. And it's great fun. So Jamie's just there, that's his sugar cane. And if you look in his inventory down here, he's only got 2 at the moment, and he's just going to cut some sugar cane down, and you'll see that go up. That's his inventory. That's only part of his inventory, because within Minecraft, you can collect lots and lots of things. And when you start off in Minecraft, all you are is you, and you have to find out how to survive. This is being used in schools now to teach children about the basics of survival. It's also being used in universities for looking at anthropology and sociology and the way that people work cooperatively. If you haven't played it, I think it's a brilliant game to learn the basic controls of playing a game. And if you're one of those parents that just watches it over your children's shoulder and feels a bit sick with all the bobbing, you might like to know that in the settings you can turn the bobbing off. You might notice I've also put the sound down because the really irritating music can also be turned off. But if you want to go home and be a cool parent tonight, what you need to do is do what I did and see if your husband has what Michael McIntyre calls a mandrel. Because when I found this setting, I went to see my husband and I said, Paul, you know when we go to the cinema to see a 3D movie and we get those 3D glasses and we put them on and then we always say, we must remember to bring those back next time we come to a 3D movie, and we always forget? You wouldn't happen to have 3 pairs of 3D glasses, would you? And you think, wait a minute, I'll go and have a look in my man drawer. 3 pairs of glasses? I can do that. He gave us the 3 pairs of glasses. We went onto the settings in Minecraft, and we just changed one setting. You can see it very easily. I'm just going to tell you what it is because I can't remember what it is. Hold on. Go down. I've got lots of notes here. Are they still playing? Yeah. Yeah, you switch on a feature called 3D graphics. Why didn't I remember that? Switch on the feature called 3D graphics, put your 3D glasses on, and Minecraft comes out at you. So if you want to be cool tonight, try that one out. Everybody got a pair of those 3D glasses stuck in a drawer somewhere? Yeah, we've got hundreds of them. If you need a pair, just let my husband know. He'll get it out of his man drawer. Right, okay, so that's Minecraft. This is Jamie just going around in his house now. You can just see various things going on. And to a grown-up, you think, well, why? Why? They have so much fun doing this. Jamie actually has a secret passage that goes from his house to his brother's house because his brother keeps coming over in their world and nicking things out of Jamie's chest of inventory. So Jamie, very sensibly, has built a passage to Thomas's house that Thomas doesn't know about, and has built a room in Thomas's house which Thomas doesn't know is there. And that's where he stores his most precious things because he thinks he'll never look at his own house for my stuff. I thought that was genius. But and you have to go down through the loo to get there. It's very clever. But that's my children's minds. It is a brilliant game to play. Go and play. They're just about to go down the loo now. Go and play it. Go and have some fun. It is fantastic, all right? Anybody, if you haven't played Minecraft, if you want to learn about basic games, that's a great one. And also, because it goes at your speed, you're not kind of doing this with the handset if you're new to using a handset. It gives you a bit of time to get into it. Go play your games. You can play it in two-player mode as well, but I'm going to move on. Now, the next game I want to talk about is this one. Now, if you have children in your house, probably male children, who are about the age of 11 up to about 16 or maybe older, this is probably a worry to you. Has anybody got teenagers that seem to know more about FIFA 14 than they are doing in terms of studying for their GCSEs? That's the situation in my household at the moment. Thank you, sir. You know my pain. And Thomas and I had a lot of rows about this because we couldn't get him off it. We've learnt to negotiate. And then when I started investigating how FIFA was played, I changed my views because in this game, Thomas has learnt subtly about international relations, financial budget management. He's learnt negotiation skills. He has an understanding of how market forces and economics work. We also found out over Christmas that he has an uncanny understanding and knowledge of the flags of the world. Somebody gave us this lovely, exciting game to play called Flags of the World. And so we left it till Boxing Day, and then the person that gave it to us was there, so we thought we'd better be polite and play it. And I didn't have a clue, neither did my husband, neither did most of the adults. Thomas went, oh, that's Bolivia, that's this, that's that. And he just floored us because he's learnt them. And we said, where are you getting this from? FIFA. So if you think FIFA is not a good thing for your children, I'm here to tell you, actually it is. It is a very, very complicated game. It's brilliant for critical thinking, it is brilliant for decision making and skills of trading. And we're just going to run a bit of it. Now, Thomas is talking on this one.
3 players.
I'm just going to get you, Mark, if you could just turn the sound down on that. Right. Tom plays in a system called Ultimate Team. And so he has to buy players with his points. And you collect FIFA coins and you get paid in coins if you win games, if you win a season, if you win competitions. So you have to use that money to start leveling up as you go through everything. Some of you are nodding, you've obviously played this game, okay? I watch, I don't play, I'm rubbish at it. Lots of people say to me, well, FIFA, that's just like Digital Subbuteo. Oh, goodness me, have you missed the point? It's nothing like Digital Subbuteo, all right? That's the end game. The big game is this bit. Now, this bit here, if we can just turn it up. Oh, no, I think we missed it. Thomas here is talking. He was talking, then we missed it. Don't put it up. He talks there about the chemistry that he has to build, and that's where you get that international relations bit going on, where he has to work out the best chemistry for the team. It's very, very clever. And for the critical thinking that it puts your child into, you can see how fast that's him talking about it, but we won't listen to him because he's very boring and he'll be embarrassed. And he wishes me to tell those of you who play this that this was a team we just put together for demonstration and they're pretty rubbish. Okay. Doesn't want to ruin his reputation. But what they can do in this game, he can go on and not just play against the machine, he can play against friends, or he can just go and play what he calls somebody random. Because you just go on through Microsoft, Xbox, and you just find somebody to play. So if I can just, I don't know if I can fast forward that through. Okay, I won't go through that. So that's FIFA. Brilliant, great, far more than you would ever mention. If I wanted to prepare him for corporate life, that's a good game to play. The other thing it's done, he's a lot better at managing his money now, funnily enough. So I'm very happy with it. This is a new game that Thomas got at Christmas, and I kind of had a look at it, and I fell in love with it. This is basketball. We'll just play this. Is it going to play? This is basketball. Thomas is number 13. That's a special number with him. We can just turn the sound down on that. I love this game, and what I want you to look at is I want you to look at the coaching system here. This is not a tacky coaching system. This is linked to how they coach basketball. It's absolutely fascinating, and he gets in-the-moment coaching, in-the-moment feedback. I'm going to see if it will let me, no, it won't let me jump. Because I'm in this presenter mode, it won't let me. Will it let me, if I pull it? No, I can't jump to show you, but what happens, I haven't got time to run the whole thing, but what happens is every time he does something right, his score goes up, and you start as a rookie, and then if you play well, you get chosen by a team, and as you get chosen by a team, you get paid, and then you have to start moving your career. And Thomas discovered that because he didn't use his money to buy a suit, that he wrecked an interview that he had. I'm thinking, that's genius. He now wants a suit. So, you know, there are things going on that you might not realize that are intrinsic to these games, which are actually good for kids. And they think it's a game, but they're learning in a subtle way about life. And this is very, very reflective of real life. Now, the next one, which I keep showing you, so I may as well go and talk about it, is LA Noire. Anybody come across this game? Okay, I love this game. I absolutely love this game. It's an 18 game. Okay, I'm warning you of that now, but I have not put anything that we shouldn't see in it up. This game is as close as I think you could get to the perfect simulation. And if I told you that in LA Noire, my son has learnt how to interpret poetry for his English, would you think that was possible in a detective game? Well, it is. In LA Noire, you have to go off and you have to solve the case. And in this particular one, this is all based on the poems of Percy Shelley. And you have to read the poem, and it's a clue, and you have to interpret it into the landscape, the context in which you are working. And having got the poem and worked out, you have to drive yourself across town, which is the bit that I'm really rubbish at, so Thomas always drives. He always knocks people over, and when you knock people over or you damage buildings, you lose marks, and you get told off by the sergeant, and you don't progress. It's like real life. You really do get chewed out, as they say in the States. So here we go, just starting to get the clues. It's an absolutely fantastic game. It's completely addictive. We only play it together as a team. That's my insistence on anything that he wants to play that's 18. He has to play with me or his dad, because then we are there to peruse what's actually happening and make sure that he doesn't necessarily choose something that we feel is inappropriate content. But we're addicted to this. We're like a detective team. But it's been really useful in teaching him to interpret poetry. And he's just done his mock exams, and he got an A star in his English mock exam. And I was like, yes. I don't think it's just down to that, but it's important. So if you've never played LA Noire, it is an 18 game, and you really want a challenge as a person, it's great. It's also, you really have to know what you're doing with the controller, so progress up to that. It's an old game. It came out in 2009. But if I was, we're going to go driving now, and we're going to knock someone over. If I was... you don't want to listen to it gets worse. If you put it up, you'll hear me saying, Thomas, slow down, red light.
You heard what the captain said. The department is not going to take responsibility for all those.
So you can see where we're going, little orientation.
Red light. Let's just get this sick pervert and have it done.
I'll turn that on and make it out, won't it?
Yeah, that's Thomas's attitude to everything. Turn the red light on, get out of the way. But every time you damage something, you lose marks, you get chewed out for it. But what I want to show you is the clue book, but I haven't got time, so I'm going to have to move on. But it's absolutely brilliant, great fun, but brilliant learning opportunities inside that game. Anybody want to go play? Okay. All right. So let's get on to the serious side of this now. But that's giving you some games. You know, I found a lot of people when I talk about games have never played them. So it's very difficult for people to understand what Minecraft is unless they know what it looks like. Okay, so the impact of what is being learnt, as you saw this morning in the open keynote, is becoming one of the greatest forces in terms of how humans learn. And we really have to sit up and take notice. The brain is not hardwired. We know that it's plastic, and we know that experience can change its connectivity function and even its structure. And you saw that, actually. It was a brilliant lead into today for me. Just providing information is not enough. I wrote that 3 weeks ago. Brilliant, I've got the proof now. But our memories, and it's really important that you take hold of this, our memories do not reside in one part of our brain. They are intertwined in all sorts of parts of our brains. And so our memories are fundamental to being who we are, and we learnt that this morning again in the keynote because they change your perception. And what we know is that a particular memory being distributed means that if you are not paying attention, you will not learn, all right? If you are paying partial attention, you will not learn. If any of you have got kids who play computer games and you go in and you say, it's 5 minutes till dinner time, they don't hear you because they have got into what we would love to be able to do with all of our people that we're helping in learning. They've gone into a state of flow and their outside is not connecting, yeah? That's what's happening. So it's a really important part of who we are. And what I've discovered from the research that I've done, and this is me not being a neuroscience, but just the research that I've done, is that there is some significant information that goes on. When you're learning, not being lectured at, like I'm doing now, this is not a good learning experience, but when you're learning, you have a good experience or some form of experience, and that does go into your memory, right? But it doesn't necessarily go in full time. It doesn't necessarily stay. It depends on what that experience is like. And actually, there's one thing missing from that memory in that model. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to let Lucy Brown see if she can get you to work out what it is. I want you to read this comic strip and then tell me what's missing. What's missing from that model based on what Lucy shows you? Anybody want to volunteer? No? It was nothing to do with what went on in class. Context is kind of there. No. It's a personally relevant experience. Yeah? Personally relevant. Who got knocked down in the hall? Lucy did. Who found out that the drinking fountain wasn't working? Lucy did. She learnt 2 things in one day. Why? Because it mattered to her. Do you get it? Personally relevant. And when something is personally relevant, we get emotional. We express an emotion, sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious. There's a lot of science going on at the moment about whether you're expressing a reaction, an emotion to a situation, consciously or unconsciously. I'm carrying on with my research into that, and I'll talk about that maybe another day. But personal relevance. There we go, Julie. So if we go into here, if you take an experience and you add an emotional reaction because it's personal. That's the key. And it's memorable enough that people think, oh, that was an experience that was either good or bad. You know, we were talking about love or hate, so good or bad. Then it is more likely that that experience will be stored in your long-term memory, and it is more likely that you will change your behavior. That's a fact now from neuroscience. We know that. So that's a very dumbed down version of it. There are some people that claim that they think that our emotions actually turn on and turn off our ability to learn. And if you want to go and find out more about that, it's questionable research, but it's quite interesting to read. Just go and Google a lady called Priscilla Vail, V-A-I-L, Priscilla Vail, if you want to know more. And she's got quite a lot to say on this subject. So Here we can see that what I've just told you is backed up by quite a few very well-known neuroscientists. And here's the one that I really love. It's biologically impossible to learn something to which the brain has not paid attention. And that's why when you say to your kids, it's time for dinner, they're not listening, because they're paying attention to the computer or whatever else they're doing. I have a negotiation skill with my son now. When he's on FIFA, we give him 15-minute warning, a 5-minute warning, and then if he's not at the dinner table by the time I say it's dinner time, he gets no more FIFA. Works really well. But negotiation is the key to a happy home, apparently. So, too much insight into my life. One of the problems that I come up against, though, is that people say that people in the games world are triggering bad emotions. They're triggering anger and rage and all those negative emotions. And yeah, they do. All right? And they've got very good at it. And they are very negative, but they're doing it to heighten the excitement of the game. So we don't necessarily want to make learning that exciting that it does those things. But if you're looking to try and think about how you can use emotion in learning, I recommend this model to you. I found this model very, very useful when I've been analysing games and how they work and looking at the different kinds of emotions and how they are being triggered within video games. And I've now started looking at the work that I'm doing and looking at how I've actually triggered those emotions in my learners when they've actually run the learning that I've delivered. Does that make sense? So I'm using this. This is still early days for me, but this is the model that I'm actually using to help me understand emotion. I think somebody said so well, though, really the sum point of what I'm trying to tell you is that learning is experience. And as we learnt this morning, everything else is just information, and apparently information, as we learnt from Bo, is meaningless. So Einstein knew a lot, didn't he? So what I'm looking for when I'm designing a simulation, a piece of learning that I'm going to gamify, I had to break it down, and I've created this kind of 4-quadrant approach to the things that I want when I'm designing something that is gamified or fully gamed. The 4 quadrants are quite simple. This is called my gamification lens. They are mechanics, measurement, behavior, and reward. And I'm just going to run you through those now, just so you can get a feel. From a design perspective, if you are designing a sim, or you need to look at the different skills set that you need. You need to be aware of game flow. There's a lot of different things that you need to understand in terms of being an instructional designer and being a Sims designer, but they are very crossoverable skills. That's the wrong word. You can cross those skills over, but you do need to be aware of it. I'm in the process of kind of defining a job role kind of strip for it. If I was going to employ a Sims designer, what would a Sims designer look like? But I've not finished that piece of work yet. So this is my ecosystems, and really you cannot have mechanics without measurement, measurement without behavior change, and behavior change without reward. They are interdependent. And from the work that I've done, first of all, we can go to mechanics. The first thing that you would expect to have is audio-visual storytelling in some form. Doesn't have to be animation, can be live video, doesn't matter what it is. But it needs to be audio-visual, because we learn from 3 things. We learn from seeing, we learn from hearing, and we learn from emotion. They are 3 core things that you need to be aware of. Storytelling in games manufacture is not very good, or at least it wasn't, but they are getting much better at it now. They've realised that was the thing that was missing in terms of stickiness to get people to come back, to want to do the next stage, to want to, like with us in LA Noire, to want to do the next episode. Yeah? Storytelling is stickiness, good storytelling. And I know they're doing that somewhere else, so I'm sorry if you're missing that session, but I guess we'll all catch up on the videos. The second thing is audio-visual clues. Don't tell, show. Yeah? Stop telling them everything, and it's about discover. Show them stuff, make the connections. Don't necessarily tell. Third thing, give them objects to interact with, and we call them response objects. And response objects, for me, need to be kind of quite challenging tasks, but make them playful if you can. Vary them. You know, please, not too much drag and drop and all that stuff. We've overdone that. It's very important to allow for some self-expression, and we saw that in Minecraft. Self-expression is a really big part of Minecraft, and so If you've come across Tom Kitwood's work called The Person Comes First, anybody come across that? It's about malignant psychology, social psychology. I've used that really well in terms of looking at how I would use social media in a sim in order to make sure that I'm not disrespecting the learner. And respecting the learner, putting the person first, it's Tom Kitwood's work, is really, really important when you're designing learning, as far as I'm concerned, particularly when you put them into a playful space, because playful spaces should be safe. And whereas you might want to provide what I call confusion, which was called this morning uncertainty, it's still got to be reasonably safe. Yeah? Now, it is safe if you're doing it through a computer screen. It's a different thing if you're standing somebody on the edge of a cliff. Anybody played those games? Those outdoor games, standing on a cliff and they want you to traverse it. That's a bit more scary, okay? So that's a serious game if you're playing it for a game. But think about respecting the learner. Okay, I'm going to run. Okay, so measurement then. Let's have a look at that. So measurement, for me, first of all, they need some form of measurement, so a meter or points or some sort of device that says, this is how you're doing. You also need to look at completion. So what is completion meaning? Is completion meaning that's the end, or is completion meaning, hey, you've got to this stage? How are you going to indicate that? How's that going to work within your game? There's then the analytics, feedback. Goals should be clear, feedback should be constant. Constantly give me the feedback, but you need to get an analytic system going that's going to be meaningful to the learner, make it personal. Quality is also very important, and that's about goals being clear and making sure that you are not creating something where you're deliberately setting the learner up to fail. If they can't then go back and try again. And trying again and learning through failure is one of the reasons why games are so addictive, because we learn that we failed, but we can see that we could just about do it if we went back and did it again. Anybody done that with learning to jump with Super Mario? Oh, I'm going to have to jump a bit harder. Oh, I'm going to have to add a bit more power. It's that kind of thing, but doing it with learning. What are you asking them to do? And then you've got time. And time for me is something that people use to penalise people, and I don't think time should be a penalising thing in learning. It might be okay in a cartoon game, but if you're trying to get somebody to learn, there must be a very good reason for setting the clock on them. Okay? Then we come to behaviour, and engagement obviously is important, and making it fun and making it sticky, and that all comes back to storytelling and the visual clues, so they all interlinked. Mastery, giving them a sense that they are beginning to master the subject, letting them know, yes, you've progressed to this level, or this is what mastery looks like, this is what your next goal is. And the coaching in that MB in the basketball game is absolutely brilliant. For a model of coaching, it is absolutely superb. I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to show you all of it. Personal relevance, I've already talked that to death. If it's not personally relevant, it ain't happening. If you take that off, your game's done. People won't play it, period. And value. There has to be a personal value for participating, particularly if you allow people to play in a social space. It depends on how you want to do it, but these work even if you're just going to do some very simple gamification, as I'm going to show you. We'll just run through reward, which is my final bit. Recognition is a really important part. I've lost my mouse. Ooh. Is it on there? Oh, it's over there. All right, hang on. No, I've completely lost it. I can't. Oh, got it. Recognition is extremely important, and people like to be recognised, and we do things like leaderboards or success amplification or certification or qualifications or sharing the fact that people have got there in the corporate workspace. Reputation is very useful if you want to share that people have done that. So sharing reputation, building people up because they've achieved something is again a good motivational strategy, so that interlinks with what else is going on in here. Status might be things like attributing benefits, yeah? Perhaps you get some benefit within your rewards program that you have to motivate your learners. That's important. And finally, incentive, and obviously that could be the bonus, the benefit, the promotion, the career progression, whatever you want it to be. That's a basic lens and a basic structure for thinking about if you're really going to design a sim, that's what you need. Well, I'm going to tell you a little story now, because unfortunately, I went to a summit this time last year in America, and we were talking about changing the name of one of my clients' products to include the word game. And they'd asked me if I would build something to do with dementia. And I said, you cannot change it to game because I cannot make a game out of dementia. Yeah? That just feels so wrong. And then 2 months later, I sat with the client and said, actually, we'd like to put gamification into this product. So I had to eat my own dog food. And that's what we've done. Dementia is a cruel disease. 85,000 people are currently living in the UK with dementia, and over 1 million people in the UK at the moment are probably living with dementia but are undiagnosed. If dementia has touched you, trust me, everybody that's been involved in the project I'm about to share with you has been very deeply touched by it. One of the things that is really upsetting when we share this piece of learning, it's e-learning, which was done on a very, very small budget. When we share it with people that have been touched by dementia, we get one thing that they say to us afterwards, which is heartbreaking. And that is they say, if only I'd known. Because what this piece of learning does is it unlocks an amazing way to communicate with someone who has gone fairly deep into their dementia. So let's give you a taster. This is Frank, and you'll see this is our gamification going on. And in the gamification, it's not tacky. We're going to monitor how you listen, your observation skills, and your communication skills. And you have meters that are just gently telling you how you're doing. It's very, very gentle. Let's just see what Frank has to say.
Who are you? Do I know you?
So how would you start with that then? It's quite daunting when you meet somebody who has dementia.
Frank, your son Jeremy just called to say he'll be popping in later.
When's that likely to be then?
Okay, so that's us giving a bit of context. We're in a care home. We're starting to interact with the care home staff, and we're doing that. As we get going with Frank, he starts to talk to us.
BSAS 250 side valve. Yeah. She wasn't brand new now, mind, but she really went. Yeah, Dad got me some proper goggles for my birthday. What else is on those cards of yours?
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. You just saw the learner getting a reward. Did you spot it? Was it tacky? When you're talking to somebody with dementia, they are living in their reality quite often. They see what they see in their head, not what we see. So again, it's that perception thing that we learnt about. And what happens is, when I was working with the SME, Sarah Reed, she said to me, when you're talking to somebody with dementia and you're trying to make a connection with them, put pauses in, because you will see that they will look into the distance and they will be reliving a particular thing, and they will be arranging that memory in their head. And she said, when you're trying to talk to someone with dementia, get them to give up the picture. And so what I've done is I've turned that into the rewards situation, and you saw the two little photos come up there. Were you a bit intrigued by the dog and the goggles and all of that? You know, it's very gentle, because we're dealing with a very gentle subject. And what we've done with that is, when you come towards the end of it, if you haven't persevered with Frank, you will see a lot of these photographs and you won't necessarily know what they're about. And we know that people get intrigued by the photographs and go back and do the whole thing again to find out which bits of Frank's story they missed. So I allow them to fail, but I allow them the opportunity to go back and do it again. It's very gentle. Gamification does not have to be harsh, tacky, meaningless. You can make it meaningless. The thing that you'll see here, the technique that we use is with these cards, and the cards actually are real. I've got them here. They're physical. And also the whole process that we use for the cards is real. And what I want to talk to you about very briefly is a technique that I call crossing the glass. How many of you have ever been in a piece of e-learning and thought, oh, that's a good diagram, and then you click on and you've lost it? And you think, well, I'd like to have had that. Have you ever had that? Have you ever done screenshots of something in a piece of e-learning because it was useful? Because, you know, as an instructional designer, we spend hours designing really good diagrams, and then we just show them to you for, 30 seconds and a minute, and then we move on. Why do we do that? Well, we don't do that anymore. What I do is I do this thing called crossing the glass. And what we do is we say, if there's a really good graphic or a good guidance thing, we don't allow the learner to say, oh, you can have that if you ask here or you go to this website or whatever else. We stick it in as a download that the learner can take now, so that the resource crosses the glass to the learner in the learning flow. Does that make sense? We also got clever, a little bit cute, we thought, with this. So here, this is just one very tacky way of doing it in Array, because we were on a very small budget, but if you clicked on the link, you could download this card. They're physical as well, you can print them out, and it gives you all the guidance that you need, just as a PDF, so they're really good for accessibility, because obviously you can read the card in a PDF as well, so good for JAWS and things like that. But what I did do then, come on, yeah, is what we do is we actually allow the cards to cross back. So let's just see the card crossing back. So we're now with Frank and Molly. And the card just came from under the camera and crosses back through the glass. You've had it your side, it's now gone their side. You know, trying to get that crossing the glass idea going.
Hello, you three. Sorry to break up the party, but I need Mrs. Davidson.
Oh,
I'm going to take you upstairs to the hairdressers.
I like this top.
Now, we don't make it easy for the learner. We don't give you, oh, I'll click through this, I'll choose that, I'll choose that. We get to a point with our learners where we say, so what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Because it's about communication. So they actually have to type in what they would say at that moment. And this is a technique that I love, because this is like freeze frame real life. What am I going to say? You get thinking time. And you type in what you're going to say, and you click on, and things progress. But what you get at the end is you actually get the opportunity to see what you said, and you get additional guidance against what you said. All right, I'm going to show you that in a minute. I was going to show you another piece, but I'm not going to. There is an app that goes with this as well, so people can download the app. It's free. It's only on the Apple Store, but you can actually get the cards as well. So we found loads of people have gone and downloaded the app and just played with it. And it's actually not just great for talking to people with dementia. It's great for talking to anybody who is more mature than yourself. Talking about that, what you do, when you put in your response, it goes into this grid. It's like a magazine style assess yourself, because we had to make this accessible to the public, to clinicians, to care home workers, anybody that is in the dementia space, and that's a lot of people. But you can see what your response is, and you can see the guidance, and then you can score yourself. And people have responded really well to this. And at the end, you get a kind of magazine-style score. And obviously, if you're doing this in a supported environment, you then get feedback from your supervisor or whatever else that gets written up. So that's a piece of e-learning. It was done on a very, very tight budget. I hope it gives you some ideas. Is that what you thought gamification would look like? No? Okay, good. I'm glad it wasn't. More typical gamification. This is a program, a simulation that I was involved with. This is about environmental science. This is in America. We're in Sparksville, sorry. In this one, the learner has taken on the role of mayor of a local town, and they have to learn to balance. We've got the balance bars down here again. The nature, the economy, and the requirements of the population. And in this, they get to adjust the dial and then watch time play out over a series of years. And obviously, if they get it wrong, they either damage the environment, they damage the economy, or they damage the population. And they go through seven levels of this as they go on. Not just on this particular example, this is just one of them, but they get increasingly more complicated as they go up. This is the starting point with just 3 dials. As they go on, they end up with 9. And they really got to have paid attention to the learning that segments in between in order to make sure that they come out an eco-hero. Very American, but you know what I mean. Okay. Psychology, we did this one with psychology. I wasn't personally involved in this one, but this one's quite interesting in terms of it allows you to stop and think and apply psychological theories, and you can actually get scored out of it as well. And that gives you an indication of some of the ways in which we would score things. If you'd have seen L.A. Noire, it's kind of similar to that. And then obviously we did one on health and wellness, which is where you have to monitor your team to take part in a race, and you have to help them with their health and wellness as you prepare them to take part in the race, and how well you prepare them determines how well they do in the race. And that's another example of where you can see that we got things right or wrong, and you can also see the students right up there, which we get an instructor to mark. So That's gamification from my perspective. And you might or might not agree with me, and I hope that if I've done nothing else, I've made you think about gamification, and I've made you think about how some of the ideas you might be able to translate into the workforce yourself that you're working with or not. But one thing I would say is if you want to continue to be sticking your head in the sand and saying, gamification, it's not happening, then you're in for a nasty surprise because for example, I was at an event quite recently, just before Christmas, and a very well-known L&D person stood up and said, she was on the panel, and she said, gamification is just a distraction. You know, the business leaders want it, but it's not helping me. It's getting in the way of me developing what they need. I think that was a big mistake, but that's my opinion. Gamification of learning is not going to go away. In fact, the games manufacturers have realised that we're quite a rich source of diversity for them, and they are starting to say, if L&D don't want to engage, we're just going to do it anyway. It's a very, very big next phase coming from the games industry. Are you aware of this? If you want to go look at a good example, how many of you have found SEL, Social and Emotional Learning for Children? This is quite an extraordinary piece of learning. It's a game, but it's oh so much more than that. This is like brilliant in my terms. So you have the child at the middle and they play the game, and they play the game against their colleagues as well. And also they take those skills that they learn into the classroom when they're not playing the game, and also when they're in the playground. But they get assessed on their skills as well, and when they're assessed on the skills, the assessment goes to the parent, and when the parent gets it, the parent can see what their child is learning, they can do activities together to reinforce, and you get the real life transfer. That's quite an interesting ecosystem, isn't it? Can you do that with your learning? I'm heading in that direction. That's gamification. It's not tacky, it's not nasty, it's not trivializing anything. If you're hung up on the term game, don't use it. Or, if you want an alternative, if you don't want to call it the gamification of learning, how about the learnification of gaming? Let's just switch it round, change our perception, as we learnt this morning, look at it in a different way. I hope this has been of interest to you. I hope I've not talked too much and bored the pants off you. I hope that what I've covered will inspire you to perhaps engage a bit more with games. Please, go away and play more games. Thank you.